Welcome into another beautiful Sunday morning here on Belly Up Fantasy Live Dynasty Edition. We are getting into the heart of summer here now, and the off season of all of our football teams, getting ready for some wild fantasy seasons. But first of all, Mr. Kevin Wilson, how are you this morning?
I'm doing outstanding, Andrew. And how about yourself?
I can't complain. Like, other than, I was just telling you guys about the being attacked by clouds of pollen up here in New England. It's my allergies. I'm surprised I'm able to talk right now, and I haven't started, coughing and keeling over. But I'm alive. I'm doing good.
All right. So you got your drink going on?
You got the tall boy today. I'm jealous.
No, it's a thin one. It's not just the tall. It's a thin.
Oh, okay.
We're not getting crazy over here.
Tall and thin. What are you creating, a dating profile? But anyway, I'm glad to hear you're doing well, Kevin. And then Chase down at the proper bar as we sit here talking about tall, thin drinks. How are you this Sunday morning, Chase?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Happy to be here. Happy to be, doing something other than the play that I've been working on for the past month and a half. So, yeah, I get the day off from that. So it's football day. Let's do it.
Nice. Yeah, if people don't know, you are very involved in the theaters and in your local community, correct? It's like a local theater?
Yes. Yeah. We actually, it's weird for a small town in middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. We actually have quite a few community theaters in the area. And I've been active in 3 or 4 of them and trying to help out and acting and directing and all kinds of fun. So my wife's actually on the board for one of them. So that's how we met. That's how my wife and I met. So
that's a great story.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that I think anybody who volunteers, works, or has any part in this industry of fantasy sports or sports in general, I think is that we all like to just keep our schedule filled and do as many things as we can. So being so involved in the theater for you and then doing football stuff on the side, it just makes perfect sense if it's the mold.
Yep.
But anyways, so I'm here. We might have a special guest joining us randomly here. We'll see. He said he might pop on, so you'll see if we have a special guest or not. But anyways, we are going to be talking about some OTAs. Those started up this past week. There's some early storylines coming out of them, but mainly what I think our listeners could help, how we could help our listeners the most is how much should they even be paying attention to OTAs when it comes to preparing their dynasty teams, whether it's their last minute off-season trades or if they're getting ready for startup drafts or rookie drafts, whatever it may be. How much stock should they be putting into these OTAs? Kevin, let's go to you first. I mean, this is something that not everybody even participates in.
No.
Well, as a football fan, I paid zero attention to OTAs, and as a fantasy guy, I paid just a little bit more. But seeing as how we are in the business of dynasty, and that's a all year round thing, then I do believe that dynasty guys in fantasy do need to be paying attention to what's going on right now, because we can pick up players that are available on the wire right now. If you could, in some leagues, and one of the leagues I'm in, we did a rookie draft and we talked about all that already. Why we're doing that, we don't know, but that opens up the field. Whoever's on the waiver wire, we can make moves. And at the bottom of your roster, they're all imminently replaceable. So if you see somebody that's doing well right now, and the other guy that you have is injured, or maybe he's not even there, or he's not playing well, whatever the case is, you just make that swap out, and you're the better for it. So if you're in dynasty, then you definitely need to be paying attention to what's going on right now.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think, outside of dynasty, if you're just in redraft or, that's where you kind of, there's still other opportunities later on this year that's going to mean more than the OTAs. It might put some guys on your radar, but don't be, creating your whole team and draft strategy based on this. But yeah, dynasty, it makes perfect sense. Are you on the same kind of feeling there, Chase?
Yeah, you can't put a ton of stock in it. Like, we talked about before, like, okay, well, I'm not worried that Lamar Jackson's not, in Raven camp right now. Lamar Jackson is still Lamar Jackson. He's been there forever. They're not necessarily putting in a ton of, new stuff. I think you have to, like Kevin said, I agree that we probably look at it a little closer in dynasty and in fantasy football than the casual football fan does. But you have to look at each team and each team's specific situation.
Yeah.
Are they putting a new coach in? Are they going to be relying on a ton of rookies this year? Are they trying to break in a new quarterback, whether it's a new to the league or new to them? And then you have to kind of also wade through the coach speak. You're going to hear coaches say, "Oh, this guy looks great. This guy's been awesome." That might be great. He might be looking really good for what you thought he was going to look like. But if he's still going to be your number 4 receiver on a running offense, that doesn't mean much to me. So you kind of have to sift through to find what's actually relevant, what actually means anything in OTAs. But like Kevin said, you can. I mean, if you're really paying attention, you might be able to pick up a hidden gem, like he said, for the bottom of your roster. I've said it before that I'm not necessarily thinking that anybody lost their fantasy draft because they didn't have Albert Wilson rostered, especially in June. But if you pick up a guy, again, looking at a team's specific situation and what's happening with them, if you pick up a guy who has an opportunity to be a number 2 on a passing offense, possibly because he's looking good and because he's got an injury-prone guy in front of him or whatever, it's a way to possibly get one of those guys that can really help you out down the road, even if it's just for a couple of weeks. The other possibility is to look at OTAs and find out who's really struggling, who looks like they need to make another signing, and then keep an eye on guys like Julio Jones that are still out there and Odell Beckham Jr. who are still out there, and some of those kinds of things, and see if there's a way to pounce on that opportunity, even predict that opportunity before it happens.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you both said there. I think for me, the main thing I look at is I'm looking for chemistry out of OTAs for, like you said, for specific situations where either a rookie, is he meshing well with the quarterback better than you expected in a receiver stance. I mean, the chemistry mainly when it comes to receivers and quarterbacks, but especially for veterans who are now on new teams, like a Jarvis Landry down at the Saints or Allen Robinson out with the Rams. Like, these are guys who you want to see if they have this chemistry, and that's where the OTAs for me become useful. Is if they're not having chemistry, that's a massive red flag going forward, because this is the perfect time for them where there's no pressure, there's no real stress. They should be able to be out there having fun, getting to know each other at these OTAs. And if they're not able to get on the same page at OTAs, then I'm really starting to worry about some of these guys. But if they're out there and they're clicking, they're having fun, they seem to be gelling with the team, then I start to look at those guys a little bit differently moving forward when we get deeper into the summer and start really seeing some moments in practice and sprint preseason moments where it starts to make sense and you can jump on some of these guys. But there's specific guys out there, some of these news stories that we're hearing about. For instance, I think an interesting one is when it comes to injuries in OTAs is that someone like KJ Hamler coming off an ACL injury, just coming out yesterday afternoon that he is returning to practice. So to see him moving in a Denver offense that's supposed to be pretty high powered and high flying, sure, he could be the 4th option as a wide receiver on that team, but between Judy and Sutton and Patrick and himself, there's usually at least 1 or 2 injuries in that wide receiver core in past years. There could be an easy path for, if he can stay healthy, all of a sudden he becomes the number 2 on a high-powered offense. That's someone you might most likely be able to find out there on some of these dynasty waiver wire teams because people dropped him with the injury. What's your outtake on someone like KJ Hamler coming in early in this offseason? We can go to you first there, Chase.
Well, I think that in the bigger picture, what you just said is a good point to make, that injuries are one thing to monitor in OTAs, and it's one area where you actually maybe can glean some useful information. For one, obviously, if a guy gets hurt, that's on your radar. But like you just said too, listening to who's coming back from injury and who's progressing well from his injury from last year. Last year, like from the Packers standpoint, and fantasy-wise, it wasn't necessarily on everybody's radar, but David Bakhtiari had, he was coming off the knee injury from the prior year, and everybody was trying to follow his progression and how he was going to come back healthy, and he ended up not really actually playing at all last year. You want to be hearing good things about guys' injuries this time of year. You don't want to be hearing that they're still, months away from trying to walk on it or whatever else. You want to be listening to that kind of information. So injury information is one way you can really get some useful information out of OTAs. But yeah, a guy like KJ Hamler, I mean, they're going to be a better passing offense. They have to be a better passing offense. I've said before, I'm not necessarily. Maybe I'm in the minority, but it's I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but I'm just not a Cortland Sutton guy. Mm-hmm. I actually like Tim Patrick a lot. I like Judy if Judy's healthy, if Judy's on board. Looks like Judy's past his legal problems, at least from the legal standpoint. We'll wait to see if the league, tosses anything like a one gamer or anything out for him. But at least he looks to be on board. KJ Hamler is one of those guys that if you've got a deep bench in your league, a deep roster where you've got 20-some guys and you can afford to put him on there, probably isn't too bad a pickup. He's better than some guys are going to be, but he's kind of buried down that depth chart. He is, no matter what, going to be behind Judy. He's going to be behind Sutton, regardless of what I think of Sutton. And honestly, I think Tim Patrick is underrated in that offense. Plus, they've still got Albert O, and we know that Russell Wilson likes tight ends. Yep. Again, you've got Javonte Williams and you've got Melvin Gordon, who are both pass catching capable backs.
There's a lot of options there.
He's worth a deep roster spot, and like you said, injury-wise, Sutton and Judy, they're probably good for at least a couple of weeks this year. Mm-hmm. So it's a possibility. Yeah, I'd pick somebody like a KJ Hamler up if I had a deep roster spot, and yeah, I can trade him for.
Well, like Kevin said earlier on, if you're looking at just swapping guys in and out of those bottom few spots on your roster that are very replaceable, I would, at this point of the year, I would rather take a chance on KJ Hamler to have there, knowing that say an injury does pop up to one of these guys even in the offseason, or say, whatever, so many things could happen to where all of a sudden KJ Hamler sees himself be, in that 3 or that 2 spot on this wide receiver team. I'd rather take the chance of having him there in case that happens. And then same thing, if another, high risk but better reward situation pops up, then maybe Hamler's the guy I drop at that point. But I'm gonna each pickup would be who's got the highest ceiling for that spot on my roster possible. Right. And for me right now, compared to a lot of guys out there, Hamler's got a decent ceiling compared to some other guys.
Hamler as the 4 in Denver is probably worth more than anyone at the 2 in Chicago, say. You know what I mean?
It's very possible, yeah.
To be honest with you, for a season long. And in a best ball type format, if you're in a best ball type format,
it's a great end of the draft.
He has that ability to go off. He's a great add in something like that.
Well, because he has the ability for 1, maybe 2 weeks he can put up 20 plus points. It's in him there. Yeah. Kevin, how do you feel about following your man Wilson down there? Do you think he is capable of kind of making a possible wide receiver 4 on a team relevant?
Well, I'm one of those ones that I'm going to take a little bit of a departure from what you guys are saying, because a number 4 guy on any offense isn't really worth a whole lot to me. And because we're, when you're talking about football, you're talking about opportunities.
Yeah.
And if you're the number 4 wide receiver, you're not going to get a lot of opportunities unless someone, like you said, gets hurt. So, if, like you said, if have some room at the bottom of your roster, you might want to make a move. But I'm not going to replace a number 2 receiver on any team. Despite what Chase just said, I'm not going to do that for some guy that's a number 4. I'm just not going to do that. And on a regular situation, I'm not going to make a move like that, because there's too many options right now in the Denver offense. They've got the 2 running backs. It was a surprise that now they've got 2 running backs. Now they got 4 receivers, and they got 2 tight ends over there now. That's just too many mouths. And Russell Wilson doesn't have 2 footballs he's throwing all at the same time. So he's going to get his opportunities, but I just don't see him getting enough opportunities right now to justify making a roster move on him.
All right. So mark it down, everyone. Kevin Wilson is in on Byron Pringle and Velus Jones Jr. in Chicago. He is he's boosting them up his rankings.
That's right. Pringle, you got to go with Pringle because you like potato chips. So there you got that.
He likes to pop the top off.
That's right.
Actually, it's about what he does, and yeah,
it is what he's good for. That's about it. But so, I agree and disagree with what you're saying. Like, I think, like you said, I think in most situations, I'd rather have the number 2 in a lesser offense over a number 4 in a potential air show offense, especially when there's 2 running backs too tight. Like, I get that logic completely. I do think there's some situations out there where there are some offenses that, like, let's double. I'll hate on my own Patriots here. Like, there's a lot of questions in that wide receiver core. Would you rather have not Byron Pringle. You got Pringle on my mind now. Would you rather have a KJ Hamler in a more solidified offense who's been there over, see, I can't even think of all the freaking receivers. The Thorndike, the rookie, or someone who could be the number 3 or number 2 over there, Jacoby Myers or Nelson Aguilar.
That's a little bit different because now you're talking about situations that are not settled. We don't know who the number 2 receiver is. We don't know who the number 3 receiver is. So making any kind of gamble with any of those guys doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because they're going to have 7,000 running backs in New England. We know this, and so
cycling back around too to the original OTA argument. That's something that we should,
that's right. That's right. You need to take, find out who is Matt Jones targeting.
Who is stepping forward in New England?
And those are the situations where you're looking for chemistry because that's what's going to carry them through.
Is Tyquan Thornton looking like he's going to be anything?
And another thing you need to look at is some of these guys are really, young, first, second years, whatever. If you've got an opening on your taxi squad, you can pick up one of those guys, slide him in on your taxi squad, and let him sit over there. You know what I mean? Because then that doesn't disrupt your roster whatsoever. Yep. They just sit there, and then you can see what's really going on. And if they're not making it, you kick them, and it's no loss to your roster whatsoever.
Yeah,
love that.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. Kevin Wilson, he is playing chess while the rest of us are playing checkers.
Taxi squad.
He throws out the taxi squad.
Awesome.
I had to learn on the fly because taxi squad. Who cares about a taxi squad? But you have them in Dynasty.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got them in other leagues or not. Any other fantasy football leagues I've played in don't have that option. Because if you're in redraft, it's not a season-long thing anyway. So but you have that in Dynasty. It's there. If you've got the openings, you can make a move. Like I said, your roster stays the same, and it doesn't cause any ripples whatsoever.
Well, and I agree with that point that you made earlier about the bottom of your roster and churning the bottom of your roster. I mean, I don't care if it's redraft, if it's keeper, dynasty, what. That's just that's something I'm always doing. I'm always one of those guys that at the end of the year, when you look at the standings and it says, "Oh, moves, roster moves."
When you look at mine, there's 100, 60, 50, who knows what?
Because like you said, it's not going to hurt you to change up the bottom. If the 7th wide receiver on your team, on your roster, that you're probably not starting most weeks, if ever anyway, you're not. I mean, there's opportunity to lose a guy that then comes up with an opportunity, but those are the places where you can find that mid-season pickup that ends up being the league winner, especially if you can do it a week or two ahead of time. You want the guy, you want to pull the Bill Belichick moves of, doing the move early rather than late. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be trying to pick a guy up after he's gone off for 120 yards because he got the start this week. You want to be trying to get that guy early. So use those bottom roster slots. And in a dynasty format, if you've got a longer, deeper roster, more roster spots to play with, or a taxi squad, like you said, those are moves that you just should be making. Obviously, you're not dropping and churning over your top 3 at each position, the guys who are going to start for you week in and week out. But I've always said that there's no reason why you're not going to lose your league because you dropped the number 6 receiver from the Panthers, and picked up the number 3 running back for Arizona. You're not losing your league like that, but it very well could win you a week or 2 or the league if things break right. So you got to be making those moves.
Yeah, for sure. And
I agree with that 100%. And also, if you're looking at and somebody's impressing you that maybe you didn't think would be impressive, and then or maybe not impressing, there's a guy that we could bring up as a guy your Packerland that I read about was Christian Watson, and he's got the case of the dropsies going on up there in Green Bay. I read about that, and so now maybe his owner is a little nervous.
Yep.
So you might be able to slide on in there and make an offer that he wouldn't have accepted a week prior, because he's all, man, this guy's going to drop balls all over the place.
Exactly. It's not just about bailing on guys that are maybe making people nervous. It's about the opportunity to pick guys up who are making people nervous right now. Remember, and I know better than anybody because I was not high on Davante Adams his first 2-3 years in the league. Yes. Because his first 2-3 years in the league, Davante Adams had a lot of problems with drops. I don't know if it was nerves. I don't know if it was adjusting to how hard Aaron Rodgers throws the football as compared to his college quarterback, Derek Carr. I don't know what it was, but his first 2-3 years in the league, Davante Adams was not a great hands receiver. He became one, and now he's a wonderful receiver, and he's one of the best route runners in the entire game. And now, you want Davante Adams in whatever format you can get him, real life, fantasy, best ball, dynasty, keeper, redraft. Hell, I'd have him at the barbecue. I don't care. You want Davante Adams. His first
maybe he's watching this and he'll send you, hey,
Excellent. No, he had a lot of drops though. And Christian Watson, that was one of the flags on him coming into the league. Mm-hmm. 1, he played at a lower level in college than most guys in the draft. And 2, his hands weren't necessarily as rock solid as everybody else, or maybe they were rock solid, unfortunately.
So far, that's what's manifested.
And that's what people are keen on. Now, how much of that is media speak in the preseason and trying to find something to talk about on talk radio? But the guy he's replacing had the same problem his 2-3 years in the league. In a dynasty format, if you can convince a guy or girl to, give you Christian Watson for 75 cents on the dollar because they're worried about things, and you don't have to give up a whole hell of a lot for it, that's worth a shot. That would be worth a shot. But those are the kinds of things in OTAs to monitor, and not necessarily even to be looking to pick up guys off of the waiver wire. But like you just said, Kevin, since we are a year-round format, look at what news items might be making a guy or girl nervous, or what news items might be making a guy or girl really excited about somebody you have on your team that you don't necessarily need, right? If great news comes out about Tyquan Thornton in New England,
I won't believe
he's still a wide receiver in the Bill Belichick offense, right? And if I've got him, if I've drafted him and I don't need him because I've got a top 3 receivers set, maybe I can pick something up to help me somewhere else because there's a lot of great news on Tyquan Thornton, and I'm not as high on him.
Well, you're making a great point about both of you are making great points about following the news, and it's also a place to be cautious about because we're talking from the standpoint of being the person trying to take advantage and make a move. Here's the thing. A lot of these news articles, a lot of these writers at this time of the year, they have a job to do. They need to make stories. They need to get views. They need to get reads, clicks, whatever.
You need to get clicks, that's for sure. We know how that works.
In this period of time in the football season, there's not always a ton to talk about. So you gotta, I pray, do not be making moves on your football team, your fantasy teams, based off of headlines. Click the story, read the story, and I guarantee you, like 80% of these headlines that are going to be out at this time of the year, you read through that story, you're going to realize, there's not much here. There's nothing like I don't have to worry. But the headlines, they're looking for those clicks because they don't have. Look, in football season, when we're in the gritty, each week of the football season, there's so many stories. They have to almost fight over which ones they do write about and which ones they leave out. this time of year, they're looking for anything they can get. So you gotta don't overreact. Let's be smart.
Right,
let's read,
right.
and let's not let Kevin pick our pockets.
Well, like you just said, we're looking to take advantage of other people, but other people who are paying attention. If you're in a good league, quality league, and you know the people in your league, they should be looking to do the same thing. So if you get approached about something, you know, the obverse of trying to take advantage of somebody is trying to not be taken advantage of yourself. If you get approached with a move, like you just said, oh, hey, do the research, make sure that you understand the move you're being approached with before you click yes or no. You know, understand what you're being asked to give up or acquire and why. You know, why is somebody jumping on me in the middle of June with a trade, request? Unless there's a legitimate way to help both teams. You know, not everybody subscribes to that. Not everybody subscribes to the both people should win in a trade kind of thing.
No, I've been involved in fantasy and all sports, and that is certainly not the case. There are people that are looking to win the trade, and you have to know who those people are.
Yep.
And if you know that, and you get a trade request from that person, I'm going to almost automatically say no.
Right.
I know what's up. You're trying to, trying to, snatch the rug out from underneath me, and don't let that happen.
It's a topic for a future show, but it does happen.
It does happen. It happens in every sport there is. Fantasy sport there is. So be aware, like you said, Chase, of the guys in your league. And because that will become pretty apparent, I'd say, pretty fast, of the people that are in your league that will try and win. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try and win the trade, because you want to get the best thing for yourself. But, don't be offering some 15th round guy, and you want to go over here and pick up somebody like Saquon Barkley.
His name just popped into my head too. That's great minds, dude.
But that is where you got to think about the landscape of the trade market at this time of the season. We're after the draft now, so nobody's looking to make a trade to where you can say, okay, this person's willing to give up a little bit more so they can get a draft pick. Like the draft's over now. We kind of know where guys landed. Like that stuff's not going to matter so much for this year. So I feel like there's two types of trades that happen at this time of year right now, and it's that you're either getting someone's trying to take advantage, or you're overreacting and you're trying to dump someone you shouldn't be dumping. Like those are the two trades you see this type of year, and you don't really want to be there. Like you said, there's no both teams win in any scenario of trade at this point of the season. You're most likely taking advantage or being taken advantage of.
Yeah, and you want to try to
be careful.
You want to come out ahead in the trade from your standpoint. The other guy getting something good in the trade doesn't mean you lost the trade. And again, this is a topic for an entire.
It is. We could spend a whole show talking about trades and owning your convictions and believing like you have a plan, they have a plan. It doesn't mean that you can make it.
Don't be afraid to jump on an opportunity. Yeah. Because you think, okay, well, I don't like this guy. If I can get rid of him for something, hey, great. Don't be afraid to try and take hold of that opportunity. But at the same time, you don't want to get the reputation that Kevin just talked about of being the guy in the league that's always trying to fleece everybody in a trade.
Oh yeah,
you don't want to be the guy trying to grab Saquon Barkley for the fourth string wide receiver in Carolina.
Well, I mean, not to cross sports here, but that's what happened to Danny Ainge in Boston in the NBA years back when he had all those Brooklyn picks and he was trying to turn him into. He was known as Trader Danny. Everyone in the league knew he fleeces people. And they didn't want
there.
Yeah, so nobody wanted to talk to him. Nobody wanted to accept his offer unless they felt like they were definitely winning the trade. And of course, he's not going to say yes. So it's the same thing here. You get that reputation. Look, I've been there where I get that reputation in the league because I like to send a lot of trade offers. And yes, some of them I'm definitely trying to fleece somebody. Others are pretty fair, but because you have those few in there that you're trying to fleece, that you do lose a bit of credibility. So it's something that I myself need to work on in my leagues because I just like trading so much. I sometimes just try to do it for the fun of it, and I get a little too carried away.
Yeah, I've seen that so many times where you get a trade offer, you reject it, and then that person immediately takes that person that you rejected, and he's on the waiver now.
You
see that a lot of times.
You didn't want him anyway. Great, I'll take it now. now that he's
Right.
free,
And
now that I
you know,
can
one of the
decide-
other things that we're talking about trades is sometimes you don't be so concerned about winning the trade. Sometimes you can get less coming back if it's what you need.
Yes.
Right.
And it helps your team, but you're giving more, but it's helping your team in either the short or long runs.
Yeah,
And so because I've done that before where I've traded, man, especially if you're in a 2-quarterback league, I've done it where oh crap, I only got 2 quarterbacks. It's bye week. What do I do now?
Sure.
And there was somebody else that had a quarterback that had too many. So I made an offer. I knew I was giving him more than I was getting, but I needed that guy
exactly
to continue playing well. So in that case, I gave up more. I knew I was giving up more. The guy said yes. I was happy even though I gave up more, and just I continued on from there.
So 2 things. First off, Doc, make a note of that we got to talk about that on a future program. The draft strategy in a dynasty league and how to be successful trading in a dynasty league.
Yep.
2, change your laundry or answer your door.
Well, so this is a perfect. So what's going to happen now? Because the laundry is done, it is going to keep beeping until I go over and open the door. So this is a perfect time.
Wow.
This is a perfect time for our Kevin. We've been here before. You've been on the show and this has happened before. So we're gonna avoid this going on for the next 20
We got to
minutes.
do what we got to do. That's
we
all
are
there
going
is to
to
it.
jump to our Manscaped ad here. It's a perfect time lining up with our commercial break. So stay tuned here. We got some words from Manscaped for our summertime balls and our joy and comfort here. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.
Sweaty Sack summer is approaching, and it's time for you to prioritize the comfort of your crotch. That's why the kings of crotch comfort, Manscaped, have spent 2 years designing the most comfortable boxer briefs out there. I've had the honor of testing out these new boxers, and I can say it's the softest fabric of any underwear. So breathable that it's like gills for your groin. They even trademarked the jewel pouch, so you know it's serious. I think it's time you invest in your family jewels, so let your bulge breathe and get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. Let's say you're on a date and your partner catches that Manscaped on the waistband of your underwear. It's almost guaranteed to raise some eyebrows and act like a billboard on the highway to Pleasure Town. This is thanks to the Lawnmower 4.0, the best electric trimmer for below-the-waist grooming. This trimmer offers skin-safe technology designed to trim hair on loose skin. Outside of just ball trimming, they're now focusing their efforts on helping out your thigh slappers in other ways with game-changing boxers. These boxer features include the Jewel Pouch, a pouch designed to cradle your boys in their own special space, lined with perforated performance fabric, and keep them well ventilated. Basically, just imagine your balls sipping pina coladas, chilling on a hammock on some tropical beach. Get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. One more time. That's promo code BELLYUPFANTASY to get 20% off and free shipping. Once the Boxers 2.0 touch your sack, you'll never go back. Sweaty.
It cut off there. It's caught me, it surprised me. I have one question after that, though. I want to know, where's the on-ramp to the highway to Pleasure Town?
Yeah, I keep running into the off-ramp, so it would be nice to know. It'd be nice to know where the on-ramp is for that.
Those are getting better every week. They're getting ramped up.
They are.
And for those who out there who are curious, I did just receive a nice package from Manscaped. I went out and got some stuff from them. Look, don't give me the quotes when I say my package. Got a package there.
Nice package.
But for real though, so what I did not expect to get in that package, which was a little bit of a surprise, was they have boxers in there as well. They got some briefs. And let me tell you, these things are comfortable. They are silky yet supportive, and whatever you want, they're tight. It's just nice. They're nice and comfortable. I love them. So definitely check those out, Manscaped.
There you go. Not just a spokesman, I'm also a client. So there you have it.
Exactly. One of our best and favorite sponsors here on all of our Belly Up stations, but specifically here, yes. Belly Up Fantasy Live. So, hey, I don't know about you guys, but I am shocked we spent so much time talking about a conversation started with KJ Hamler. So that is fantastic. Because I think we could probably spend the rest of the time here, we'll see if it happens, talking about someone who is in a situation that is a bit more I guess, in the spotlight and more possibly impactful here is Jarvis Landry down at the Saints. So this is.
I thought you were going to move on to Zach Moss.
No, you know what? I wasn't even going to get to Zach Moss. That's
probably a fortunate thing.
Yeah, but Jarvis. What's interesting about Jarvis Landry and the Saints in general right now is that it's almost as if that we're going to see a completely different offense than we did last year, because it's pretty much known that Jameis Winston is going to be, at least to start the season, the guy there. And we've added Jarvis Landry into that mix. We've added Olave into that mix, and we've added Michael Thomas coming back into this mix. So this offense is going to look a lot different than it looked last year. Mainly right there, your top 3 receivers are going to look completely different. So the fact that we are getting early reports out of OTAs that Jarvis Landry is dominating touches to a point that Kevin brought up earlier that, a lot of times this is coach speak. They're just trying to either, one, use the public media to hype up the player himself, or 2, just to hype up the team, or they're just using it as a way to get some attention or to tell their fan base even to, like, let's calm down, relax, we're doing okay down here. What I find interesting about the Jarvis Landry comments, though, is that specifically they said what is really being noticed in practice, and this doesn't surprise me as far as from a Jarvis Landry standpoint, is that his physicality and his attitude towards things in the offense. And those are 2 massive things that I think that could carry him into being, a top 10, 15 receiver this year, and what could be a high risk, high reward offense. Is that he's a veteran who's always played tough. He almost plays with that old school style where he's going to put his body in the line. He's going to go out there and fight for balls, and he's going to leave it on the field every single game. And I love that about Jarvis Landry. But the fact that he's also got that attitude where he's buying into the offense from what it sounds like early on here, and that he's supporting his teammates, this could be a perfect situation to where we can probably get Jarvis Landry on the cheap still right now, because people are so unsure. Like, not as cheap as some other guys, but for Jarvis Landry type value, we might still be able to get him lower. So are we reading too much into, or am I reading too much into these OTA comments about Jarvis Landry? How do you feel about him? Do these change the way you feel about him going forward? Are you still where you were before OTAs? And we'll start with Kevin this time.
Well, the biggest that you mentioned when it comes to Jarvis Landry, that's most important to me, is you mentioned the attitude. Because if he didn't have this attitude, he most likely still be up in Cleveland. And so he needs to be a team guy, which he wasn't. He needs to be able – the physicality is important because that's part of his game. And so I really have a hard time buying into Jarvis Landry. I don't trust him, especially coming off of last year. And so if his attitude is different, that's important to know. And that could win me over just a little bit when it comes to Jarvis Landry, because I'm one of the last guys that would be on his bandwagon. Because we've talked about him before, and I said, well, Jarvis Landry's not riding in to save anybody's fantasy season. But if he's playing with an attitude, and it's the right attitude, that could turn things around completely. And if he's out there, he's probably not on the fantasy wire or on the waiver wire. I wouldn't.
No, you have to trade for him most likely.
Yeah, so you're going to have to make a trade for him. And if I'm making a trade for that guy, he's going to have to convince me that we're looking at a different Jarvis Landry. So maybe that's what's happening here. He's starting to turn that around a little bit. I need to see more before I'm fully buying into him.
Well, I think what I like about Jarvis Landry specifically paired up with Jameis Winston this year is that he's a type of receiver that Winston hasn't necessarily had too much of in the past. Between Mike Evans early on, he's got the size, but he doesn't always use the size to his ability. He can be a guy who takes plays off. He can be a guy who doesn't necessarily get overly physical on his routes to fight for the ball. And Jarvis Landry's a guy who plays bigger than his size, who does that. And I think that's something that could play to both him and Winston's, not strengths, but give them more of a different dimension, because, Winston might be able to use him in more of a way where he's not just bombing it down the field like we're used to seeing Winston do. He might find some trust in Landry across the field and making some things happen after the catch that gives him confidence in him. I think the whole situation down there in New Orleans is interesting for Landry because of the type of receiver he is. I'm trying to think now, like when's the last time the Saints have had a guy kind of that plays that physical at receiver? Because Michael Thomas, it was even not necessarily a bit like a physical guy. He just was a fantastic route runner who could find the opening and find the space. I want to go all the way back to like a Marquise
Marcus Colston.
Marcus Colston, thank you. Yeah, like he was the last guy that I think of at the Saints who was played a bit more physical as a receiver. But other than that, because Drew Brees was so precise, they definitely played more into the get to the open space. I'm going to get you the ball like where it needs to be. Winston's not that accurate, so this might be something where Landry can take advantage. You were making some faces there, Chase, as Kevin was talking. I couldn't tell if you were agreeing or disagreeing. Where are you at?
Tell us. Bring it.
I'm wearing the Star jersey, but I am also a Browns fan, a Cleveland Browns fan. I don't have my Kosar or Otto Graham jersey yet, my Brian Syke jersey, but I always liked Jarvis Landry, but I like him more, again, as we've said before, as I've said before, I like Jarvis Landry a lot more in real life football than I do in fantasy.
Sure.
He's not a needle mover necessarily in fantasy football circles. He catches a ton of balls if the balls are there.
Mm-hmm.
Fell off of that wagon a little bit in the last year or so, but how much of that is due to the Baker Mayfield situation in Cleveland? Did those two not like each other? We've learned that Baker and Odell did not get along real great. Did not have a great relationship. We know that Jarvis and Odell are close, very close. How much did that play into things? I think Jarvis is one of those guys who's a team leader in the locker room, but we see him from outside as not necessarily wanting to commit to the Browns organization. And I think I will agree with you in that sense, Kevin. And when you said he's not necessarily a team guy, I think Jarvis is all about the guys in the locker room. I don't necessarily think Jarvis is all about the front office and the organization that he plays for. I think that in the situation he's in, he's going to do whatever he can to lead and play hard for the guys who are in the locker room with him, in his receiver room with him. But again, yeah, he's not going to stay in a terrible situation just to help out the Browns because he's under contract to him. He is, I think, a great compliment in New Orleans if Michael Thomas comes back and can't guard Mike. If Michael Thomas can still be what Michael Thomas was, then having a Michael Thomas can be your big hitter.
Yep.
Jarvis Landry is your move the chains guy. And we haven't even talked about the fact that they've still got Chris Olave. Okay. And
who's also supposed to be a big hitter.
Exactly. We don't know what he'll be able to add to that. We know that Jameis Winston can throw the football for literally miles and miles because he has done it before. And with a deep receiver core like the Saints appear to have right now, that could be a great situation down there. I like Jarvis Landry's fit in that offense. I don't necessarily know that I'm high on him from a fantasy standpoint because I've never necessarily been high on him from a fantasy standpoint in terms of wanting him as one of my top 2 or 3 options. He's better in a PPR format.
Yes.
Especially in an offense like this where they are going to throw the ball. We don't necessarily know yet how Alvin Kamara's situation is going to shake out. Mm-hmm. If Kamara is healthy and available, legally and otherwise, if he's available, he will take some targets. However, Jameis Winston isn't necessarily the dump down type. Okay, he's going to take shots down the field. That's why he throws 40 touchdowns and 40 interceptions in a year.
Yes, it is.
Right? So
right.
I'm a lot higher on Jarvis Landry's fit in that offense from the standpoint of a real life, how it's going to affect and how it's going to benefit the New Orleans Saints, not necessarily how it's going to affect and benefit my fantasy roster. But I definitely think that it's a great fit for him. And, it's a situation to monitor. He could be one of those guys where he surprises this year and turns into one of those guys that really helps your team out because, like I said, in a PPR format, and if they're throwing the ball the same amount, and that's a question too with the new coaching staff in place. If they're throwing the ball like, New Orleans has always tried to throw the ball, there could be a lot of targets for Jarvis Landry to catch. And he has shown an ability to be that high volume, not necessarily high yardage, but high volume catch guy. And if you're getting a point for every catch, that's something to look at for him.
Yep, I definitely feel that when it comes to Landry. So that's why I think that's one of the more interesting offensive situations to look at throughout this offseason. And the one last topic I kind of want to get to here before we sign off for the morning is another offense that I know we're going to jump to one last thing. I want another offense that I think is going to fly under some people's radars, not necessarily to be good, but something that more people should be watching how it shapes out for fantasy purposes in this offseason. That's the New York Giants offense.
I was hoping you were going there. Yep.
Yes, because there's two big stories here that I think are very interesting. One, Saquon Barkley, once again, this could be coach talk, but it's being put out there that he could be more involved in the receiving game, which I don't think obviously is a bad thing for him. I think it's a good thing for Daniel Jones as well in the offense as a whole, if that is the case, if he's healthy enough to do it as well. What I also find very interesting is that Sterling Shepard seems to be back to healthy. He's not full out running routes, but he's moving again. He's out there running on that Achilles. And if he can be ready for your preseason and for the regular season, that's a receiving core that I think between him, Tony, and Galladay, any one of them can emerge as the number one receiver for that New York Giants offense. We saw last year Galladay didn't really become what he was. You can blame it on the coach. You can blame it on Daniel Jones. The whole team situation is if you want. But he still had, let's be honest, he has the pedigree and the athleticism to still be a number one receiver if it turns out that way. I don't necessarily believe that Tony, who's listed as the number one receiver, is a number one receiver. We'll see how that shapes out. And we've seen Sterling Shepard be the number one receiver there before, or at least be a very strong number two. So it's something where there could be some fantasy value there if people were to even have dropped Sterling Shepard because of the injury and because of the New York Giants offense. You might be able to go out there and take a chance on him right now. With both of those topics, we're going to go kind of wide range here between Barkley and Shepard. Kevin, how are we feeling about the New York Giants offense here from these two standpoints?
Well, the receiver for the Giants that I'm most interested in the OTAs is rookie Wendell. How do you pronounce it? Wendell Robinson.
Wandale Robinson. Yeah.
Okay, so because I was reading that he and Daniel Jones were developing some good chemistry over there, and so he looks like a guy who potentially could be the number one or two receiver, depending on what's going on over with. I'm certainly not going to get excited about Sterling Shepard, as he's never had one of those. I've bought into him before, and he gives you 60 catches at most. And so that's not a guy that I'm going to get too excited about. Wendell Robinson, if he's sitting out there, probably isn't. But he's a rookie. If you can get him and put him on your fantasy, your taxi squad, something you can look at. And as far as Barkley's concerned, he needs to be involved in the Giants passing game because he had 91 catches as a rookie and hasn't come close to that since. Of course, we're talking about injuries and whatever else. But if we're talking about them playing him as a wide receiver, as we talked about Dalvin Cook a few weeks ago, then that changes the dynamic altogether. If they can put him out wide, because that's what I read, that they were putting him out wide, they're playing him all over the place, and that can only help his fantasy value as long as he stays healthy. So if you've got Barkley, then this is good news for you if you're a dynasty owner of him, I think.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple weeks ago, how, I took the stance where I'm not, if he can stay healthy, it's great for him, but I'm also was a little bit hesitant and worried that the more involvement in different parts of the field might lead to, just another injury. It's because it puts him at risk. So it's definitely something to consider, but I think over the last few weeks, the way we're seeing some things shape out, it definitely could be something that is worth the risk at this point. If he's going to be more involved in that way.
I definitely think it's worth a risk. I don't know if it's worth all the risk. I mean,
sure.
Your point about him possibly getting hurt just because he's split out wide. I mean, yeah, true. But yeah, any of us could get hit by a bus today, this afternoon.
Well, and I'm only saying that because he has such a rich history of injuries in the same parts of the leg. It's the Achilles, it's the hamstring, the ACL. Like it's all in the same area.
Saquon
Right.
Barkley is one of the few talents in the league who can pull off the Christian McCaffrey type role of.
And that's his value in fantasy, is the ability to catch the ball. If he can't do that, then he's not even worth having on your roster.
True.
Yep.
But Saquon Barkley is one of the few guys in the league who can approach that CMC type of usage where he can be just as effective catching the ball, maybe split out wide or whether it's out of the backfield or whatever, as he is in the backfield running the football and getting handoffs. 91 catches his rookie season. In years that he has been healthy, let's even back up before that. First off, if he's healthy, if everybody is healthy and everything is level, Saquon Barkley is the most talented offensive football player on your football team in New York. That is that is not a question.
Yeah, anybody wants to debate that needs to shut off their, just shut us off right now.
If he is healthy, he is hands down the top offensive player on your team. Mm-hmm. Now, secondly, in years that he has been healthy, and if both of them are healthy, Saquon Barkley and Sterling Shepard are your top two receivers on that team. Yes. Forget everybody else and all the other people, Golden Tate and everybody else that they've had. If they are both healthy, Sterling Shepard and Saquon Barkley are your top two receiving players on that team.
Well, the years that Shepard has been healthy, he's been a borderline, as we call targeted reception monster. Like, those guys who are just going to be getting those, 12 looks a game, catching 8 or 9 of them and whatnot.
So what do we make of this news that they're thinking of splitting Saquon out wide and doing all these things with him? On the one hand, he needs that stuff to make the full use of his abilities. Mm-hmm. And that's a great thing. If you've got Saquon Barkley or if you think you can get him, that's a great thing. Yes, he might get hurt, but like I said, any of us could step off the curb wrong tomorrow and blow our ankle out, all right? But the other thing to think about, though, is great. So they're thinking about throwing him the football. They have thrown him the football in the past. This isn't a change necessarily. This is not a change of how they use him. Yeah. It's how they should be and have used him in the past.
Before this last coaching regime showed up, they threw him the football. So
yes,
it's all about
Saquon Barkley, and it sounds like an obvious thing to say, but Saquon Barkley's worth is not greater because of this news necessarily or worse because of this news. Saquon Barkley's worth is going to be in his health. Can the man stay on the field? And they don't have any disincentive to use him volume-wise or anything else. Like we said, he's the best player on their offensive team. They have him for this year. They have not extended his contract. He is playing in a contract year. He has incentive to try and do as much as he can this year.
So they should take advantage of that.
Right. Saquon Barkley's worth is not greater or worse because of this news. His worth is all about and completely tied, more than almost any other player in football. His worth is completely tied to his health, because if he is healthy for even 3/4 of this season, he is a top running back. He's a top scoring player, period, in fantasy football.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. And I think what is even more telling is his own comments here, because we've talked a few times in this show today about coach speak and the media and whatnot. But what I take a lot of stock in is what a player says himself, and what he came out and said was that he feels like this year is a fresh start for him. I'm going to read his quote here directly. It says, "I feel good again. I know it's all there. I know how talented I am, just taking it one day at a time. You can feel the energy out here doing different things." That sounds like a guy to me who, for the first time in probably 3-4 years, actually feels healthy. Feels like himself and feels whole again. And it also just sounds like he's out there enjoying himself. It sounds like he is excited for the season, even though he's arguably on a team who could very well suck again. And it sometimes takes a lot for these guys to get up in the morning and realize, look, I'm in a bad situation. If it's all going to fall on me.
You get hit 15 times in a game and the score is 30-7. That could have anybody.
So what I'm seeing there is I'm seeing a guy who's mentally kind of maybe you can say he's mentally matured to the point where he can look at his current situation and say, I am in control of this, especially like you said, this year of being a contract year. I think he's realizing this year could be the step for me in the future that I need to be the full NFL running back that I've dreamt of being. And when you have a guy out there on those fields with that type of determination, that type of motivation, especially with his talent level, that's a dangerous, combination of viewpoints and mentality and physicality. Like if he stays healthy, he could be a very dangerous player this year.
He's reaching that age threshold where he is either going to fall off the Le'Veon Bell cliff, or become Adrian Peterson.
I agree. This is his make or break season right here.
It really is.
So,
hearing that,
if he gets injured again,
it's probably done. Not done for him, but he's not going to carry the same.
It's all done
weight
if he doesn't play well this year.
Yeah. So that's. I think we've come full circle on Saquon. He's been a topic of the show quite a bit. And I think I've started to change my viewpoint because, like I said before, I wasn't too excited about him, but I think a big part of me changing is hearing his quotes exactly. I like what I'm hearing of where he is mentally, and it's going to play a big role this year because he's got a big challenge, like you said, a big challenge ahead of him this year. This is going to be the year that could make or break the future of his career.
To circle back around to Sterling Shepard, Sterling Shepard is who Sterling Shepard is at this point, and he needs a receiver on the Giants. But I'm not excited. Doesn't help.
It doesn't help his case.
I'm not excited about him at all.
No, does not help his case. Whatever.
He's rosterable.
Sure. As a chance.
I don't want to have to count on him in any way, shape, or form.
Let's be clear. He's rosterable as a chance, but he's not rosterable as someone you're going to put in your lineup even half the weeks of the season. He's someone you put at the end of your roster and you hope that it turns out that he plays better than his expectations, and he is someone that you can use on bye weeks because then that's when he can be a difference maker for you. But he's not going to be a difference maker for you week in and week out.
Yeah, I'm not angling for him in a best ball format even. At this point, I've said it with other dudes. I'll say it with him. He is what he is at this point. We know what Sterling Shepard is, and if you're
it's not his first or second or even third year, so we know what he is by now.
Yeah. Well, that's going to bring us here to the end of our show here, and as always, give everyone a chance to say what's going on. And we know Kevin's now got a full swing of the Belly Up Fantasy live baseball show. So, Kevin, how are things going for you with that? And where else? Do you have anything else going on that you want to let everyone know about?
Well, as you mentioned, Andrew, the Belly Up Fantasy live baseball show is at 8 Eastern tonight. And also going on this week, the Belly Up family is having an NBA special event that's going on this week, which I will be a part of that. And hopefully it'll be 1-to-1 by the time we get over to discussing that. If the Celtics win today, and is it today or tomorrow? I can't remember.
Tonight.
I think it's today.
At 8 o'clock.
And go up 2-0. Okay, we may not have much to talk about if it's 2-0 Celtics.
Let's go. Get your talking points ready. You're gonna have to make some stuff up then, Kevin.
maybe so. So, we're looking forward to that this week, and you can always find me on the Belly Up Fantasy website. I had 2 stories that I dropped this past week, so get over there, check those out. You can always check me out over there.
Fantastic. And Chase, we'll get to the two of us real fast here. What do you got going on? Where can we find you?
Obviously, find me at STT Chase FFB on Twitter. We passed 1,900 followers this morning. Joined the evolution, not the revolution, of Twitter. Come check me out there. Yeah, you can find me on bellyupfantasysports.com. Check out all the other great content there, not just Kevin's, but everybody else's as well. Check out the rest of the podcast network. There's some great stuff there, some fun stuff there. Definitely get on the horn and check that out.
Yes, and as always, you can find me, Andrew LeDuc, at Real Mr. Mallet on Twitter, aka Mr. Mallet. If you don't know, I go by that sometimes. You can also find my golf show at Divots and Pivots on Twitter as well. You can find that definitely on TikTok as well. Mr. Mallet there as well for the TikTok for the Divots and Pivots show. And big news for the Divots and Pivots show coming up on June 18th from 4 to 7. If you are in the New England area, Middletown, Massachusetts, you can come see us do a live show. We'll have some giveaways from some of our sponsors like Piper Golf. We'll be doing a live show, doing some play on the simulator, and we'll be watching the third round, the premier groups of the U.S. Open that will be being held roughly about 20 miles away from us at the Brookline Country Club. So check us out there. The clubhouse in Middleton, Mass, 4 to 7. As always, it's been a pleasure to spend our Sunday morning with you here, guys, and we hope you have a fantastic week. We will see you next week.
See you later.